We're going to be taking a look at some of the material editor features that are somewhat overlooked within Vue. And I'm just going to load in a sphere as a basic object in this scene. We'll be using terrain actually to show this a little bit later. But I'm going to go ahead and just go to our material options for this sphere. And if we take a look under effects, you'll notice that we have global transformation. The global transformation is pretty powerful. We can add turbulence to a texture, rotation, and cycling outside of the function editor and edit our entire terrain, or our entire material based on one of these options. And right now, since we don't really have a surface in here, we'll have to load one up. So I'm going to escape out of here and just use this little arrow to load up a basic little material we can use. I'm just going to use rock, and I'm going to select wet sand and click OK, because it's got a lot of detail to it, and it'll probably show up quite well with these changes that we're going to make. So I'm going to go back into our material editor now, and as you can see, because we have a mixed material, we cannot access the global transformations because they are for specific materials and not for mixed materials. So if we go into this material 1, which is an isolated material, and just the one that's pretty much laying out the sand part of this texture, then we can go to the effects of that and edit that texture separately from the other one. So we can actually move around these ripples and change them. As you can see, turbulence is already turned on for this one. If we go to edit, you can see the complexity, the scale, amplitude, and harmonics that we have set, and also the noise. Now, one of the really nice things is that you can animate this. I'm going to add some rotation to this as well, just right now, to kind of show you the effects that this has on our material. And we can see that showing up in our preview right here, that we have different directions of sand and ripples. And of course, they're carving out more complex shapes. So I'm going to go ahead and close these out right now. But what we can do is animate this. And first I'm going to just click OK on both of these and go to Animation, Display Timeline. Or you can hit F11 to pull up our animation time bar on the bottom. But what I'm going to do is set this to 5 seconds and make some changes. So go back to that material editor, select that material 1, and under turbulence, making sure that we're still at that 5 seconds, I'm going to click edit, and I'm going to change the complexity to 3, and I'm going to click yes when it asks me if I want to animate, and I'm also going to change even the noise that we have here. I'm going to change it to dots. So we have something a little bit different. Our combination mode I'm also going to change, which we can do to multiply, which is kind of neat. And actually, we could change these to any number one. I'm just selecting dots, but we could also do sawteeth, which is kind of neat. Actually, I think I'm going to leave it at that one. I'm going to reduce our scale. Not too much, but just enough. And then also increase our amplitude and our harmonics. So I'll go ahead and close that out. And this should be saved as an animated surface, which we can see this red bar showing up, that it is. And I'm also going to adjust our rotation. So I'm going to make sure that last frame and edit our rotation just a little. And I'm just doing this randomly right now, not for any specific type of effect. And I'll go ahead and click OK, and OK again. And now we're going to take a look at our preview on the right. And we can see as we scrub through the animation, we get an entirely different look throughout our material based on that specific bump map that we edited. And we can even go ahead and render an animation preview for that, so that we can really see how the animation and the timing works. So we'll let that just render on the bottom. And now our animation is finished, and it is playing on the bottom. And it's moving very slowly, the changes, but you can definitely see them. They're actually very gradual and hard to even notice, even when you scrub through. But you can see, if you look at the first frame as opposed to last frame, there is a very large difference. And if we kind of scrub through, we can see certain parts almost look like they're even eroding. And that's what we're going to come to next with this effect, and that is creating a terrain. So I'm just going to create a standard terrain right now. But what we can do is apply a surface to this terrain and actually animate it over time, where we can animate the surface and the physical terrain itself. So if I go ahead and double click on this terrain, and we're at 5 seconds right now, what I'm going to go ahead and do is just dig out some areas just to make some different changes in our terrain. So it's not the exact same one we had before, and kind of make it so it's sort of eroding. And I'm going to click OK. And now we have this as an animated terrain, or we should go back, and it looks like that first key was not actually taken into account. So I'll just go back and raise up some areas and click OK. And it might be because we're not on the last frame. It's not actually allowing us to specifically animate this. So go into the center here and kind of raise that up. Click OK. And now it's going to ask us. It's because we were actually at the end of the animation. So what you want to make sure you do, if you are going to be editing your terrain, it appears that you have to actually make sure you're not at the end of the animation or the center. So you want to go back one frame. And then if you go back one frame, it will recognize the fact that we have made changes to our terrain. So I can click OK. And now it's already set up as an animated terrain, so we can go in and it won't ask us that question anymore. And just create keyframes of this terrain changing over time. I'm not going for any specific type of effect right now, just to show the actual animation. But what we can do is also apply, like I said, a material to this, so that we can create some sort of erosion. And do this the same way as we did with the sphere, where we go in to turbulence, we can add a little bit of rotation, and just sort of play around with those settings. Right now, because we don't have a real material on here, we can't really see it. But any of the rock materials, if it's a mixed material, just go in and look for one of the major uh, significant parts of that material that's really defining what the material is, or even do multiple, where we could have a mixed material. We could have 18 different effects going on at the same time, all changing at different rates and showing erosion or different effects in the terrain. So it's kind of a neat little thing you can do if you kind of take those two techniques together, where you animate your terrain and then sort of blend those animated materials with it.